to Pet's Life with Gym Dog, Ireland's first pet resort by Des the Vet. Managed by vets, loved by pets. Daycare, vet care, premium pet food and grooming. Visit at petslife.ie.
Very good morning, Des. How are you today?
Yeah, good, John. Thanks. Great to be here.
Yeah, good stuff. What did you get up to during the week? Watched a bit of rugby and...
watched a bit of rugby. Disappointed and got depressed at Munster's loss and got depressed at Leinster's loss. And I think I'll put rugby out of my head now for a month or two and focus on summer activities. Yeah. Busy with the cycling club in Kildare as well, which is great.
You love doing that, don't you?
I do. I love the old cycling.
How did you get involved in the cycling initially?
I used to run a lot. I did the Dublin Marathon. I used to fundraise for Crumlin Children's Hospital, and I would run the Cork Marathon and the Dublin Marathon every year. And after a good few years of competitive running, the old joints didn't stick the running on the road anymore, and I swapped the runners for the bike. Yeah. And the bike took over, and the bike is really social. There's a great group of people in the Kildare area involved in the cycling club. Yeah,
and the good thing about cycling is it doesn't put too much pressure on the spine or anything like that. It's kind of more to do with the building up muscle in the legs.
I'd recommend it to anybody after a football career or running career, because it's non-impact, low impact, and really enjoyable once you build up a certain level of practice on the bike. It's really enjoyable and very social.
Okay. Matters at hand. A good topic today. I was looking at it. We're doing a little bit of research in the background. Anxiety in animals, anxiety in dogs, separation anxiety. So I suppose we'll take it in two steps. Separation anxiety is the main topic of issue.
Yes, it is.
Define what it is.
Well, there are two parts to separation anxiety. Right. Okay, the first part is there's an attachment of the animal, attachment of the dog to a particular figure, usually one family member, one owner. So you have an intense attachment of the dog to one person, and then there are particular bad behaviours, undesirable behaviours arising from separation of that person. So the dog is separated from, there's an absence of that attachment figure of that person, and they become distressed.
Right.
So it's a type of a distress in the absence of one particular person that they're overly attached to.
Okay, so basically, is the dog a bit like humans? Is it a case of its anticipation of their getting to know that their owner is about to leave that triggers it?
Yes. So the two parts to it, they begin to become vocal, anxious. They get upset once they realise that the person is about to leave or they're about to be separated from that person. And then during the immediate absence of that person, they're left alone. Then they engage in undesirable problem behaviours. And those problem behaviours usually cause difficulty in the house or even with the neighbours. Undesirable behaviours such as destructive behaviours. That's a common thing we hear, destructive behaviours. They're pulling apart furniture. Yeah. If they're in the garden, they're digging, they're pulling up flower beds and so on. They could be barking. A particularly unpleasant behaviour also is in animals that are well house trained and that shouldn't be making a mess indoors. They will urinate and defecate. They'll do their business indoors because of distress. So a mixture of these bad behaviours to do with the animal being overly distressed and wound up and worried in the absence of one particular person that they're attached to.
Right. That's what it's based on, one particular person. It's not a family?
No, generally speaking, if you have a dog that's integrated fully into the family and hasn't an unnatural or an unhealthy bond, particularly strong bond with one particular person, if they're just getting on with it and part of the gang, generally there isn't the same separation related problem.
Right. It's only the one that kind of feeds them, brings them for the walks, gives them the cuddles and all that type of thing. There's always one member of every household, isn't there?
The research has shown actually that it becomes worse in dogs that sleep upstairs, sleep in the bed, this type of stuff.
Yeah, because they're too close.
Yeah, the length of time of attachment during the day can be unhealthy.
Does that mean it affects certain breeds more than others?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
No, it can be any dog, almost. Now, house dogs, naturally, that's where the bond might be. So a yard dog that's outdoors, probably not so much. If the dog does spend long periods of time during the day by himself from an early age, he won't develop that particular type of unhealthy attachment.
Yes, and I can relate to that from a neighbour's perspective because they've got a couple of dogs, but the thing is that the dogs are generally, and the neighbours are great, so there's no issues there, but I think what the one thing that I do notice, though, there's outdoor dogs and there's indoor dogs. So one of the dogs is, say, indoor constantly all the time, and when they leave, he howls an awful lot.
Yeah.
He's absolutely soul-destroying, listening to the howling, where the outside dog, which is kind of, I think it's a gun dog or something, whatever, but he seems to bark more than howl, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And that's obviously distressing in the neighbourhood, not acceptable nowadays because there are so many people at home during the day.
Yeah. And
we live in close proximity to each other in housing estates and so on. So when you have a dog behaving like that, something has to be done about it. A few horror stories and different cases of it that I've seen over the years, both in the surgery and in dogs that come in and out to us in Gym Dog for doggy daycare. The level of destruction can be severe. I have heard of a dog that actually pulled the insulation material off the walls in a home, damaged the plasterwork, had literally chewed the insert out of furniture, pulled the foams out of sofas, out of couches. I've also heard of a case where a dog ate into a fuse box, ate into an electric box in a house and caused a fire.
Right.
And then there are the regular cases of complaints by the neighbours, dogs coming to us for daycare because of complaints by the neighbours when the dog is at home.
Okay, that's fair.
And another problem with it is that, sadly, many of these dogs are rehomed because of their bad behaviours in one particular house.
Coincidentally enough, we said rehomed, so Julie was on. She says she adopted 2 dogs from the shelters over the last couple of years. They're very anxious when we leave. They're brilliant around. They love being part of our family. But when we exit, when we leave the house, basically that's where the problems arrive, and our neighbours are now telling us about this.
Now, that the situation there is the genesis of that would be that behaviour started with the previous owner.
Right.
Started very early in life, and those dogs became intensely attached to their previous owners. And again, research has shown that the attachment doesn't end when they're rehomed. They'll reattach to the new people with the same intensity.
Okay. What about medical problems? Do they trigger anything off in this department at all?
Medical problems. Well, they're probably older dogs that are less active, that are indoors more, would be more prone to it.
Okay.
So that would be a factor.
Okay, so now we know the reasons why it's happening and some of the stuff that you have to. What about preventing it?
Preventing it, have them out and about from an early age.
Yeah.
Have them sleeping downstairs, sleeping in a crate. So crate training is a good way to prevent separation anxiety. That means that from the 8-week stage, the dog is conditioned and learns to be in his own space for extended periods of time and learns to become self-reliant, and they don't develop that insecurity. So if they learn to be by themselves without becoming insecure. So crate training is a really good starting point with puppies in terms of preventing these type of behaviours.
That's a very good tip, actually, as well.
It is. Yeah. It is. They say that one of the initial causes of it can be taking them away from their mum, taking them away from the litter too early.
Yeah, after 6 weeks. But then, so that seems to happen instead of usually later 9 weeks. Yeah.
Another factor is it seems to be more prevalent in apartment dogs.
Because they're kind of locked up all the time.
Because they're locked up all the time and they're probably in proximity with that owner for hours and hours and hours.
Okay, John was on. He said that he was told the problem that he had with his dog was boredom. Yes, we are professional people in our house. We leave the dogs at home. We didn't realise how bad it was till a neighbour recorded it and then showed it to us. Yeah. We were mortified.
Yeah, it's not just boredom though.
Yeah.
Because... if it's boredom related, then the behaviour becomes more intense over time. They get more frustrated and they get more bored the longer they're left by themselves. The dogs that are just... So you have these really active high drive dogs, working breeds, and they need to be kept very busy.
Yep.
And they will succumb to boredom and they will develop problem behaviours, the digging and the destruction and the barking in response to boredom. But the ones that have separation anxiety, they get... their behaviour is worse immediately after the owner leaves. And sometimes the dogs with separation anxiety tire themselves out and the behaviour doesn't worsen. The behaviour will actually dissipate or lessen over time. But if the problem is getting worse, the longer they're left alone, then boredom is the factor.
Okay, Christina is in Maynooth and she has a question for you regarding this topic as well. How do I ease this? I have a elderly Shih Tzu going blind and myself I was recently in hospital. How do I help him? If I have to go to the shop, etc. I'm quite close and we love him to bits.
Yeah.
He is on a bit of medication and he's very good, but eyesight is a problem and this is causing distress.
Yeah, that would be probably, she said, that lady's put her finger on it there. Because he's losing his sight, he's a little bit more insecure than he was when he was younger. So he's getting a little bit of separation related insecurity and confusion.
I mean, the other thing is, think of it, a lot of unless you tell the owners about what's going on, they'll never know because they just go.
That's true.
Do you know what I mean? So unless you approach your neighbours or approach and say, listen, your dog is kind of very distressed
when you're not
very stressed, they will just take it for granted. And the dog just arrives, you arrive home from work or whatever the case may be, the dog is happy to see you, but they don't know.
No, they don't know.
The previous 8 hours.
They might assume that he settles down and he's fine after a while, whereas in fact he isn't. So it's a good thing to tell people what's happening in their absence, and then they can put some remedies in place. And there are remedies specifically and generally. One of the first remedies is the crate training. Start early with it. The lady with the Shih Tzu, with the elderly Shih Tzu, a bit of advice I can give her is what she needs to do is now the fancy word for it is systematic desensitization. So you can desensitize the dog. You can get the dog used to you being away by leaving it alone for short periods of time. So get a nice crate, have a good bed in it, put the dog into the crate for a short period of time when you're home. Then start leaving the dog in the crate for short periods of time when you're not home. Gradually you can increase it from 5 minutes to 10 minutes to a half hour to an hour to a few hours of being in the crate. And you develop that little bit of a habit that the dog understands. The crate is a nice place to go asleep with a nice comfortable bed in it, and that you will be back. They will learn to understand that you're coming back.
Okay, so we're coming into the summer period. Lots of people are going to leave their dogs off with kennels and stuff like that. So, I mean, that's where a separation anxiety is definitely going to kick in.
It is, yeah. Now, the prevalence of it, John, is such that in these post-COVID dogs, we have a system now in Gym Dog where dogs that are booked into the boarding kennels, if they're not members and they're not regulars into our kind of daycare camp, then we do an induction day, a membership day, where we take them for the day, and we encourage people to leave the dogs for the odd day of daycare before they go on holidays.
Great idea.
And leave them for a week.
So that means the two things, the dogs will get used to your staff as well, and you guys, as well as everything else. So when the time does come, they'll recognise the person who's maybe... And would you have one particular individual or a couple of individuals of staff that would be helping out the dogs? Yeah,
well, we have a team member, a team leader, Ella, whose job is to manage the membership inductions and put them through a little process of some activities and some mixing on their membership day, mixing with other dogs, and then introducing them to the different members of staff.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, so three parts to it. You have the health and safety aspect, that we get to protect our staff by understanding the temperament of the dogs that come in.
Yeah.
The second thing then is the dog gets used to us, and we get to understand who he can play with, who he can mix with, and how he's going to be with us. Yeah. And then the third thing is, because of the incidence of separation anxiety, if we get them used to the place, when they're left to stay for a week while the owners are away, then they're safer and they're happier and they're calmer and they're easier for us to manage, and the anxiety is dissipated, is lessened to an extent. So that's a little bit like the desensitization idea. So that's what we do to accustom them to our setup.
Okay.
And a daycare, if it's a thing that you do have to accept that diagnosis that you have a dog which has separation anxiety, then you can try the systematic desensitization idea with the crate training.
Yeah.
I also recommend that you should look for daycare for the dog and have the dog in daycare for a couple of days a week.
Okay.
And then last resort, treatment-wise or management-wise, last resort, but probably, I must say, in our practice, there'd be a few dogs that are on this treatment, and that would be the medical treatment for the anxiety, the new medical treatment for the anxiety.
Okay. Peter McHugh is on, and Peter's from Kilcock, and he says that when he collected his dog last summer from the kennels did a terrific job, but my dog became very nervous and anxious during the period of recovery, I suppose, coming back into our household. Is this normal?
Can be. He just had to adapt again to he may have forgotten what the routine was.
Yeah.
And what was expected of him back in the house. They very much live in the moment. And if they're in one place for a week or 10 days, then that becomes their life. So integrating back into the home and remembering everything in terms of the old routine in the place. You can't take it for granted that, particularly for a young dog, first time, he mightn't automatically slot into his bad behaviours, his good behaviours and his old behaviours. You might have to reassure him, and you might have to reinstate the routines to help him remember what's the story every day back home.
Okay, because another question in, is there such thing as medication for treatment for moderate to severe separation anxiety?
Yeah, moderate to severe. I kind of mentioned there in terms of the last resorts. So there's a tablet now which is licensed for dogs called Reconcile.
Okay.
Now some people would just use a little bit of Valium intermittently. If it's only occasional separations.
Okay.
There's Anxicam, there's a doggy version. But there are dogs that have to go on the Reconcile, that's the name of the tablet. It's actually chemically very similar to Prozac, very similar to human Prozac, which is used for anxiety in people, obviously. So the Reconcile is like Prozac, and they're on it all the time. And
what is it, just a daily tablet or something?
Yeah, daily tablet. You get dogs that are just on edge like that too much. Literally, they're nervous, and the Reconcile is a big help in terms of improving their quality of life and improving their manageability, really, for people, in terms of people being able to just manage them and keep them calm and keep them happy and quiet, and help them settle into the routine of get used to the routine of a busy family life.
Okay, right, a couple of just general questions. We'll dip back into that in a second. Our dog is about 3 years old, so good at home, but when I take him for a walk every day, there is a problem. He seems to goals for other dogs for some unknown reason. He seems to bare his teeth and has even done it with people recently. I just don't know what to do and why it suddenly has started. I presume, the suddenly bit is just me. I just don't know what to do, but he's good at home. Yeah, that's called lead reactivity. Lead reactivity. Yeah, okay. It's a really common thing. You can have a dog that's lovely, and the minute he's let off the lead and allowed walk 3 or 4 metres away from the owner, he could be fine. But this lead reactivity, it's a type of a territorial behaviour. One interpretation of it is that they think they have to protect their owner all the time. Yeah. Another interpretation of it is that the fact that they're on a lead, that they feel insecure because they're not fully in control of their own movements. Yes. And they're not fully in control of their own ability to escape when they're on a lead. Especially if it's a short lead. So if it's a short lead and they meet another dog, they might want to step back 3 or 4 metres from the dog, from the other dog. And then they might want to approach the dog at their own pace and in their own way. But being on a lead, they feel they can't do that. So they panic, they get insecure, and they become defensive. And they put up this defensive barrier of behaviour to the other dog. So lead reactivity, and it's a type of defensive behaviour. You probably are going to have to attend a group training class with a good dog trainer, like the man in Kildare Dog Training Academy holds these classes, where it would be a good thing to go and have some group work on what you can do as an owner to deal with that behaviour. Now, doggy daycare, in terms of desensitising the dog to other people, is a big help, and in terms of getting the dog used to meeting lots of other dogs, that's a big help. But doggy daycare by itself won't fix it. You probably need the intervention of a professional dog trainer for yourself as well. Okay, Teresa's on. She wants to know, can you ask Des to give me an idea of the general cost to groom a cat, if possible? She has matted her hair on part of her back. How much can I expect to pay all in? And, of course, a consultation or sedation and grooming, etc., if required with a cat. Yeah, you see, the difficulty with cats is they won't stay still. They don't stay still for the groomer. They don't like being groomed. So grooming a cat, people tend to groom their cats infrequently, less frequently, so you're only doing it once a year, maybe twice a year if it's a badly matted, older, long-haired cat or something, but it's going to be about €100 because there will be sedation involved. Okay, Carla was on. She says she's got a long-haired cat. She noticed that he seems to be scratching his neck off the side of the wall and off the fence quite recently. I took a look at his skin and his coat. Can't seem to see anything. Is it maybe time just to give him spot on or something? Yeah, do get an anti-parasite treatment there. Call into your local vet and get one of the good anti-parasite treatments and chat to them about that. I would say, look, give it a week. Use the good anti-parasite treatment. Give it a week. If the behaviour hasn't stopped, then your cat needs to see the vet. Okay. Hi, John. My question is, my dog is half Wheaton Terrier, half Jack Russell. He's nearly 3 years old. Before I leave for work, I leave him some treats and his food. He will not eat his treats or the food till my husband comes home from work. Why, says Margaret in Maynooth.
No, don't. Look at...
This could go back to the husband could be the one that brings him for the walk. The husband could be the main primary.
I would say that's an attachment a behaviour.
Okay.
It's probably as simple as that. You're lucky that behaviour, that there aren't anxiety-related behaviours with that. But he's obviously heavily attached to that person. That's his habit. That's his behaviour. He doesn't feel secure, relaxing and having his meals until the dad comes back, as it were.
Okay. Would like to know, can you get a wash for a dog? She scratches a lot. Got shampoo, not really helping, says Bernie.
Yeah, the wash or whatever isn't going to help that. I would make an appointment and have your local vet have a look at the dog. If you've already tried a simple shampooing and the scratching is persisting, then it's an allergy or it's a parasite infestation or a dermatitis. So that dog should see the local vet. Okay,
2 quick questions. Hi, my dog is 17, hasn't been well for a few days, but I don't want to put her through a lot of tests. Suggestions?
Well, unfortunately, she's going to have to visit the vet with the dog and discuss options.
Yep, okay, straightforward, simple enough. Hi guys, there's a great documentary on Netflix called Dogs Behaving Badly. Absolutely must watch for anybody with a dog. Show how to train your dog, says Tom and Kyle Dove. Yes, I saw bits of it already. Pretty good. Missed the part about the dog's behaviour, about ripping the furniture. What do you do to prevent it?
Ripping the furniture. Ripping the furniture, listener, is a byproduct of separation anxiety.
Yep.
So you have to address the underlying anxiety by the systematic desensitisation process, which is, in simple terms, crate training. Give us a buzz at Kildare Vet Surgery and we can talk you through that in a little bit more detail.
That was unbelievably busy. Des, as always, thanks a million.
It's great, John.
Do it all again next week.
It's a pet's life with Jim Dog, Ireland's first pet resort by Des the Vet. Managed by vets, loved by pets. Daycare, vet care, premium pet food and grooming. Visit at petslife.ie.